You are standing in the snow, and your skin is already betraying you. Not with a sunburn, something slower, something that's been rewriting itself for 2 million years, and is about to hand you a plot twist your history textbook never mentioned. Most people go their entire lives without knowing this story. And honestly, that's a shame, because it changes how you see almost everything. Here's the claim that sounds backwards. Every human who has ever lived started out dark-skinned. Not some humans. All of them. Including the ancestors of the palest, blondest person you know. And the proof sat frozen in a cave in England for 10,000 years, until a lab technician in 2018 opened a vial of ancient DNA and quietly broke the internet's image of what an original European looked like. We'll get to him in about 90 seconds. He's worth the wait. Call this the default setting. Around 2 million years ago, our ancestors lost almost all their body hair, a trade for efficient sweating, which meant they could hunt through the brutal midday heat of the African savanna while everything else stopped to pant in the shade. Lose the fur, keep running. Simple enough deal. Except now, there was bare skin directly under equatorial sun, and UV radiation doesn't just burn, it destroys folate, a nutrient your body needs to make healthy cells and support reproduction. Too little folate, pregnancies fail. Entire bloodlines end. So evolution did what it always does when something threatened survival. It found a fix and found it fast. Dark, melanin-rich skin. Built-in sunscreen. Installed at the cellular level. Anthropologist Nina Jablonski dates this shift to somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago. That's not a footnote in human history. That's the default setting for basically the entire run of our species. For almost 2 million years, every human being walking this planet was dark-skinned. That was normal. That was the baseline. Everything else came later. So if dark skin worked that well, if it solved a real problem and spread through the entire species, what on earth convinced evolution to start undoing it? Us. We walked. Around 70,000 years ago, groups started leaving Africa for Europe and Asia, where the sun clocks out early, takes winters off, and generally underperforms compared to the equatorial version. And here's where the same melanin that once saved lives started quietly sabotaging them. Vitamin D gets synthesized in your skin using UV light. Less sun plus heavily pigmented skin equals a serious shortage. And vitamin D isn't optional. It's load-bearing for your bones, your immune system, your ability to absorb calcium. Without it, children develop rickets. Adults weaken. Fertility drops. So what does evolution do when the exact trait that saved you in one place starts killing you in another? It rewrites the code. In these low sun latitudes, lighter skin, letting more UV punch through to trigger vitamin D production. Flip from liability to lifesaver almost overnight in evolutionary terms. Jablonski calls it the vitamin D folate trade-off. Same biological mechanism, completely opposite job, depending entirely on your latitude. Your zip code essentially determined your survival, and your skin responded accordingly generation by generation over thousands of years. Most people assume that's the end of the story. Humans went north, skin got lighter, done, roll credits. Wrong. And this next part should genuinely mess with. In 1903, cavers exploring a flooded cave system in Somerset, England stumbled across a 9,000-year-old skeleton. They called him Cheddar Man, after the nearby town. For over a century, everyone just kind of assumed he looked like somebody's grandfather from Yorkshire. Tweed cap, pale skin, complaining about the weather. He was ancient British, after all. What else would he look like? In 2018, London's Natural History Museum finally sequenced his DNA, and Cheddar Man was not pale. Not even close. He had dark, possibly black skin, and strikingly bright blue eyes. A combination that nobody, not a single researcher on the team, had put on their prediction list. Dark skin, blue eyes, 9,000 years ago in England. And here's the part that makes it even bigger. He wasn't a weird outlier. Ancient DNA studies across Europe kept confirming the same picture. Site after site, skeleton after skeleton. Pale skin. The thing you instinctively picture when you picture an ancient European didn't actually spread across the continent until roughly 5 to 8,000 years ago. It arrived with later waves of migration from Anatolia and the Eurasian steppe, carried by a specific genetic variant called SLC24A5, spreading through existing populations over centuries. Sit with that for a sec. Pale European skin is younger than the Egyptian pyramids, younger than written language in some parts of the world. The trait that so many people have built entire identities around, entire political ideologies, entire historical narratives, is, in genetic terms, basically brand new. So if skin color shifted this fast, this recently, this many times, what does that actually say about the people who built entire systems of power around it? And evolution wasn't done rewriting things yet, because then agriculture arrived around 10 to 12,000 years ago, and as it often does, quietly made everything more complicated. Hunter-gatherers were eating fish, organ meat, and animal fat, foods naturally loaded with vitamin D. Early farming communities made a trade. They got grain, stability, and settlements. They gave up most of their dietary vitamin D in the process. Grain is almost none. So suddenly, skin-synthesized vitamin D stopped being a convenient backup and became the primary source, sometimes the only source. That dietary shift is now believed to have added serious additional pressure on European farming populations to develop lighter skin, accelerating the spread of those genetic variants even further beyond what latitude alone would have caused. Farming gave humanity civilization, cities, and writing. It also apparently, gave Europe considerably paler skin. History works in strange ways. Meanwhile, on the complete other side of the planet, East Asian populations were independently solving the exact same low sunlight problem through a completely different gene near a region called OCA2. Two entirely unrelated populations, separated by thousands of miles, facing the same biological challenge, arriving at the same general solution through separate genetic paths. Biologists call this convergent evolution. Evolution didn't share notes. It just kept arriving at the same answer because the question, how do you make enough vitamin D in weak sunlight, only has a limited number of solutions. So here's the part nobody puts in the history books. For most of recorded history, people have treated skin color as though it were ancient, permanent, almost sacred, a deep biological marker stretching back to the very beginning of the human story, something that divided people in some foundational, essential way. It isn't. It never was. It's sunscreen. It's a vitamin dial. It's a biological setting that has flipped, reversed, and been independently re-evolved more than once in direct response to nothing more meaningful than latitude and diet, where you live and what you ate. That's the whole equation. We built nations on top of it. We built legal systems on top. We built centuries of violence, exploitation, and cruelty on top of it. And the entire time, underneath all of that weight, it was just a chemical response to how much sunlight hit a particular patch of ground a few thousand generations ago. Not identity, not destiny, adaptation. You've probably got a mental image of what the original version of a European looked like, or an African, or an Asian. That image is almost certainly wrong, because that image has shifted more than once in ways that would genuinely shock the people who actually live through those changes. The man with the dark skin and the piercing blue eyes in a cave in Somerset wasn't some strange anomaly hiding in the archaeological record. For most of the last 10,000 years, he might have simply been Tuesday. Remember that person standing in the snow at the very beginning of this? Their skin was already in the middle of changing cell by cell, generation by generation, in ways no single lifetime could ever see or measure. It just took 10,000 years, one accidentally preserved skeleton in a flooded English cave, and a very surprised lab technician for anyone to finally notice. The story of skin color isn't a story about who people are. It's a story about where they went. And the distance between those two things is where most of history's worst ideas took root.